The day my daughter called me a worthless old fool while clutching her Louis Vuitton bag, my heart didn't just break. It shattered into pieces so small I thought I'd never breathe again. She had no idea that the fool she was mocking had $47 million hidden away, waiting to teach her the most painful lesson of her life. The Nashville humidity clung to my skin like a second layer of regret as Ashton's BMW M5 roared into my driveway, its engine announcing his arrival like a declaration of war against my poverty. I stood behind the screen door of my small brick rancher, my calloused hands trembling, not from age, but from the anticipation of another round of their casual cruelty. "For Christ's sakes, Dad!" Ashton's voice carried across the thick Tennessee air as he stepped out, his Italian leather shoes too precious to touch my gravel driveway for long. "That Oldsmobile is literally decomposing in your yard. It's beyond embarrassing. It's pathetic." Kenzie, as she demanded to be called now, emerged from the passenger side, her face twisted in the same expression of disgust she'd worn since the divorce. "Daddy, Preston just bought Mom a Range Rover, a new one, and you're still driving that thing from 1998. Preston, the commercial real estate mogul who'd stolen Natalie while I was working graveyard shifts at the Toyota plant in Spring Hill. The man my children now called their real father at country club dinners I'd never be invited to attend. "Y'all hungry?" I asked softly, holding the screen door open. "I made chicken and dumplings. Your grandmother's recipe." "Chicken and dumplings?" Kenzie laughed, but it was sharp, cruel, nothing like the little girl who used to help me roll out dough on Sunday mornings. "Daddy, we're meeting Preston at the Palm Steakhouse after this. You know, where successful people eat." Successful people. Each word was a deliberate knife wound, carefully placed where she knew it would bleed the most. They followed me into my modest kitchen, their disapproval filling every corner like smoke from a fire. Ashton ran his finger along my counter, checking for dust like a health inspector. Kenzie photographed my ancient refrigerator, probably to mock it later in her group chat. "Sit," I said, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. "Please." "5 minutes," Ashton said, checking his Rolex. A gift from Preston, no doubt. "That's all we have for you." 5 minutes. After 37 years of sacrifice, of choosing their futures over my comfort, of working until my hands bled so they could have everything, I was worth 5 minutes. "You're both doing well?" I asked, serving them despite their visible revulsion. "I just made partner at the firm," Ashton said, not looking at me. "Youngest in the company's history. Preston's connections helped, of course. And I closed on 3 houses this month," Kenzie added. "Over $2 million in sales. Preston taught me everything about real estate." Preston, Preston, Preston. The name echoed like a funeral bell for the father they'd buried alive. "I'm proud of you both," I said quietly. Ashton's laugh was bitter. "Proud, Dad? You stock shelves at Kroger. You live in this shrine of failure. What could you possibly be proud of?" Something inside me, something I'd carefully tended for years like a small flame in a storm, finally went out. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" Kenzie's eyes widened. "Get out of my house!" The words erupted from somewhere deeper than pain, deeper than rage, from the place where love goes to die. "Take your judgment, your cruelty, your Preston worship, and get the hell out!" They stood frozen, shocked by the stranger their broken father had become. "You're going to die alone," Ashton said coldly, "in some state nursing home that smells like piss and regret." As their BMW disappeared into the Nashville twilight, I walked to my bedroom closet and pulled out the laptop they didn't know existed. The screen illuminated numbers that would have stopped their hearts. 47 million, $493,827.63. Tomorrow, they'd learn what happened when you mistook kindness for weakness. If your heart is breaking for me right now, if you understand the agony of being betrayed by those you die for, please, I'm begging you, hit that subscribe button. Because what I did next will make you question everything about family, loyalty, and revenge. I sobbed over my laptop screen showing $47 million while remembering my son's words. "You're nothing, Dad. You've always been nothing." If only he knew that nothing started with $50 and a dream when his mother was pregnant with him. The tears wouldn't stop falling onto my keyboard as I stared at the numbers that represented 40 years of invisible sacrifice. Each digit was a missed meal, a skipped doctor's appointment, a Christmas where I gave everything and kept nothing. It started in 1983, the day Natalie told me she was pregnant with Ashton. I was 22, working at the Nissan plant in Smyrna, making $8 an hour. That night, I took my last $50 and bought 2 shares of a company called Walmart. "That's our diaper money," Natalie had screamed. "It's our future," I'd whispered back. Every overtime shift, every holiday worked, every raise, it all became stocks. Microsoft at $2, Apple at $12, Amazon at $7. While Natalie decorated our house with credit cards, I was building an empire in silence, wanting to surprise her on our 25th anniversary with the truth. She didn't make it that long. Preston offered her immediate luxury while I offered distant dreams. My phone rang. "Natalie." "Garrett, what did you do? The children are hysterical." "I told them to leave, Natalie. I couldn't bear another second of their contempt." "Contempt? They're trying to help you. Preston offered you a job at his company." "As a janitor," I finished. "Your husband offered me a job cleaning his toilets. It's honest work. So is what I do now. But that's never been enough for you, has it?" "You're pathetic, Garrett. You know what Preston's worth, $15 million. I almost laughed. Preston's net worth was a third of mine, and most of it was leveraged debt. But she'd never know that. I hung up and pulled up property records for Davidson County. Ashton's luxury condo in the Gulch, $4,800 monthly rent. Kenzie's house in Green Hills, $5,500 monthly. Both owned by Bridgestone Holdings, LLC, a real estate company teetering on bankruptcy since COVID.
My hand shook as I dialed the number. "Bridgestone Holdings? This is Garrett Brenley. I'd like to purchase your entire residential portfolio in Nashville." The CEO, a man named Carroll, audibly gasped. "Sir, that's 67 properties, nearly $42 million. "I'll pay cash, $45 million, $3 million over asking, but I need to close in 72 hours. Where should I send the paperwork?" I gave him my lawyer's address, not my home. Appearances still mattered, even now. 3 days later, I sat in a conference room in downtown Nashville, pushing a cashier's check across a mahogany table that cost more than my car. Carroll's hands trembled as he held it. "Mr. Brenley, forgive me, but your car in the parking garage is a reminder that wealth isn't about what you display. It's about what you can destroy when necessary." By sunset, I owned both my children's homes. That night, I sat on my back porch, listening to the cicadas and thinking about Ashton's first Little League game. He'd struck out and cried in my arms. "It's okay to fail," I'd told him. "That's how we learn." Now, he'd learn a different lesson. "I know you want to judge me, but before you do, before you click away thinking I'm cruel, remember this. I gave them everything except money. wanting to see if they'd love me without it. They failed. If you've ever been valued only for what you could provide, please, like this video. Let me know I'm not alone in this pain.
My hands shook so violently I could barely type the email. Your rent is now $15,000 per month. I knew this would destroy them, but what they had already destroyed in me was worth so much more than money. I sat in my small kitchen at 4 a.m., unable to sleep, staring at the laptop screen through eyes swollen from crying. The cruelty of what I was about to do warred with the memory of Kenzie's words. "Daddy, you're embarrassing. I tell people you're dead." She'd said it casually, like mentioning the weather. I typed the first notice with trembling fingers. Dear tenant, effective immediately, your monthly rent has increased from $4,800 to $15,000. This reflects current market valuations and property improvements. You have 30 days to comply or vacate. Send. The second email was harder. This was my baby girl's home. Dear tenant, your monthly rent has increased from $5,500 to $18,000. Send. Then I broke down completely, sobbing into my hands like the pathetic old man they had accused me of being. What kind of father did this to his children? The kind whose children had already buried him alive. The property manager called within 2 hours. "Mr. Brenly, we have a situation. The tenant in Unit 1247, Ashton Brenly, he's threatening to sue, says this is illegal retaliation." "Is it legal?" I asked, though I'd already researched every statute. "Technically, yes, but sir, he's your son, isn't he? Same last name?" "I don't have a son," I said, and the words tasted like ashes. "I have tenants who violated the terms of human decency. Proceed as instructed." The manager paused. "The young woman in Green Hills, she collapsed. The paramedics were called." My heart clenched. "Is she?" "She's fine. Panic attack. But Mr. Brenly, this seems personal." "Everything is personal when it comes to money. They taught me that." Aston called that afternoon, his voice raw with rage and something else, fear. "I know this is you, Dad. Somehow, some way, you did this." "How could I possibly do that, son? I stock shelves at Kroger, remember? I'm nothing. You told me so yourself." "Dad, please. I can't afford $15,000 a month. I'll lose everything." "Everything? You mean the BMW, the Rolex, the suits that cost more than I make in a month?" "Those were gifts from Preston." "Then let Preston pay your rent." The silence stretched between us, like a tightrope over an abyss. He won't. Says we need to learn independence. Interesting lesson from the man who bought your loyalty with trinkets." "Dad, I'm begging you." "You're begging? Like I begged you to stay for dinner? Like I begged you to visit on my birthday? Like I begged you to see me as something more than an embarrassment?" Kenzie called next, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "Daddy, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We were horrible. We were monsters. But please don't do this." For a moment, I wavered. This was my little girl who used to dance on my feet to Johnny Cash, who called me her hero, who promised she'd take care of me when I was old. "Kenzie, honey, I don't know what you're talking about." "The rent. Daddy, I know you're behind this somehow. I can feel it." "How could I be behind it? I'm worthless, remember? A fool? Nothing." I didn't mean, yes, you did. You meant every word. And now you'll live with the consequences. That night, I couldn't eat. The chicken and dumplings I'd made, the ones they'd rejected, sat congealing in the pot. I stood at my window watching the fireflies dance in the darkness and wondered if this was what victory was supposed to feel like. Empty, cold, necessary. I see you watching, maybe thinking I've gone too far. But let me ask you something. Have you ever loved someone who only saw your worth when they needed something? If you have, if you understand this pain that feels like drowning in plain sight, please share this story. Someone out there needs to know they're not alone in their heartbreak. The private investigator slid the photograph across the table, my daughter laughing as she sold a house with a foundation that would collapse within months, killing the family inside. Your daughter, he said quietly, is a murderer waiting to happen. Theodore Marsh didn't look like a private investigator. He looked like someone's grandfather. White beard, kind eyes, gentle voice, which made the evidence he presented all the more horrifying. We met at a Waffle House in Murfreesboro, far from Nashville's prying eyes. The coffee tasted like burned hope. "Mr. Brenly," he began carefully, "what I've found, it's gonna hurt." "I'm already hurt, Tio. Show me." The first folder was Ashton's. Financial fraud at his law firm, creating fake billable hours, charging clients for work never done, embezzling from estate accounts of dead clients with no families. He's stolen approximately $300,000 over 3 years. Small amounts, careful planning. He's smart. I paid for him to be smart. Full ride to Vanderbilt Law. $280,000. The second folder was worse. So much worse. Kenzie's real estate fraud went beyond lying. She'd knowingly sold condemned properties to immigrant families who didn't speak enough English to understand the documents. One house had black mold that hospitalized 3 children. Another had a gas leak she'd covered with air fresheners during showings. This one, he pointed to a photograph, collapsed 2 weeks after sale. The family barely escaped. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until my ribs ached. My baby girl, who'd once cried when we had to put down our sick dog, was destroying lives for commission checks. When I returned, Tio had packed away the evidence. "What do you want me to do with this?" he asked gently. "I need to pray on it," I managed. "Mr. Brenly, if I may, they're your children, but they're also predators. Every day you wait, someone else gets hurt." That night, I sat in my living room surrounded by photo albums. Ashton, at 5, missing his front teeth, holding a fish we'd caught at Percy Priest Lake. Kenzie, at 3, covered in finger paint, declaring herself Daddy's artist. Where had those children gone? They died, I realized, the day their mother chose Preston's money over our marriage. They'd learned that love was transactional, that loyalty could be bought, that fathers were disposable if they couldn't provide luxury. I made copies of everything. FBI for Ashton, Tennessee Real Estate Commission for Kenzie, State Attorney General for both. Anonymous tips, untraceable, comprehensive. But first, I called each victim Theo had identified. "Mrs. Rodriguez, you don't know me, but I know who sold you that house. I'm going to help you get justice." 17 calls, 17 families. Each one broke another piece of my already shattered heart. The last call was to Preston's office. His secretary put me through immediately. "Garrett, what do you want?" "I wanted you to know that karma is coming, Preston, for all of us. You destroyed my family for money. Now watch what money destroys. Is that a threat? No. It's a promise that the truth always surfaces. Check your own books, Preston. Check your permits. Check your taxes. I did. I hung up before he could respond. Theo had found plenty on Preston, too. Bribery, tax evasion, building code violations. The empire my children worshipped was built on sand. Before you scroll past, before you move on with your day, I need you to understand something. The hardest thing I've ever done wasn't exposing my children's crimes. It was accepting that I'd raised criminals. If you've ever had to choose between protecting evil or exposing it, even when it shares your blood, please subscribe to this channel. Your support means someone else might find the strength to do the right thing. I heard my son scream from 3 blocks away when the FBI kicked down his door at dawn. I sat in my car, watching them drag him out in handcuffs, and I whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over until the words lost all meaning. The arrests were coordinated for 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I'd been awake since 2 a.m., sitting in my Oldsmobile outside Ashton's building, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The FBI arrived in 3 black SUVs, no sirens, no drama, just efficient, practiced movements of agents who'd done this before. They disappeared into the building, and I counted my heartbeats. 247 beats before they emerged with my son. Ashton was in boxers and a t-shirt, barefoot, handcuffed. His neighbors watched from their balconies as he was led to the SUV. Then he saw me. Our eyes met across the parking lot, and I watched the exact moment he understood. His face transformed from confusion to rage to something worse, betrayal. "You!" he screamed, fighting against the agents. "You did this! Your own son!" I mouthed, "I'm sorry." But he was already in the vehicle, disappearing into a future I'd created for him. Kenzie's arrest was quieter but more devastating. The Real Estate Commission had revoked her license immediately. Local news picked it up. Green Hills realtor accused of multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. She called me from jail, her one phone call. "Daddy." Her voice was so small, so young. "Daddy, why?" "Because Mrs. Rodriguez's children are in the hospital with respiratory failure from the mold you hid. Because the Nguyen family is homeless after the house you sold them collapsed. Because I failed to teach you that people matter more than profit." "But I'm your daughter." "My daughter died the day she said she tells people I'm dead. You're just someone who looks like her." She sobbed, deep, gutting sobs that tore through the phone. "I wish I was dead," she whispered. "No," I said firmly, "you wish you were different. Death is easy. Change is hard. Choose hard." Preston's arrest made the biggest headlines. Nashville real estate mogul charged with tax evasion and bribery. Natalie called me from their mansion, hysterical. "You destroyed us all. Are you happy now?" Happy? No. Justified? Yes. "You'll lose everything, Natalie. The house, the cars, the club memberships." "You'll lose things, Natalie. I lost people. Which do you think hurts more?" She hung up. I drove to Percy Priest Lake, to the spot where I'd taught Ashton to fish. The morning sun painted the water gold, and I remembered his laugh when he caught his first bluegill. "Daddy, look, I did it!" That boy was gone. I'd turned him in myself. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Brenly, this is Rosemary Hutchins. You don't know me, but my mother was one of your daughter's victims." "I'm sorry?" "No, I'm calling to thank you. What you did, turning in your own children, that took courage I can't imagine." "It didn't take courage," I said quietly. "It took accepting that I'd already lost them." That night, I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the silence of my choices. The news played on my old TV, footage of Ashton being led into court, Kenzie crying at her arraignment, Preston in an orange jumpsuit. I'd destroyed them all. The question was, had I saved anyone in the process? If you're still watching, if you haven't clicked away in disgust at what I've done, then maybe you understand that sometimes love means letting people face consequences. Sometimes being a parent means admitting you failed. Please share this story with someone who needs to know that choosing justice over family doesn't make you evil. It makes you human. When the judge asked if anyone could speak to my son's character, I stood up holding 40 years of receipts. Not just financial ones, but receipts for every birthday he forgot, every Father's Day he ignored, every time he chose Preston over me. Your Honor, I said as tears streamed down my face, I'm about to bury my son while he's still breathing. The Davidson County Courthouse smelled like old wood and broken promises. I sat in the back row of Ashton's sentencing hearing, invisible among the other spectators, holding a briefcase that contained his entire life. Every receipt, every photo, every moment that led to this. His lawyer, a public defender now since Preston's assets were frozen, painted him as a victim. Your Honor, Mr. Brenly grew up in a broken home with a father who couldn't provide stability. I stood up, my legs trembling. Objection, I said, my voice cracking with emotion. The judge, an older black woman with kind eyes, looked at me. Sir, you're not an attorney. $200,000 total. Here's the car I bought him at 16, the apartment I paid for in college, the suit I bought him for his first job interview. Dad, stop! Ashton's voice broke.
Here's the Father's Day card I sent him every year for 15 years that he never acknowledged. Here's the birthday invitation he returned unopened. Here's the text where he said I embarrass him. Tears were streaming down my face now, but I continued. And here, Your Honor, is my bank statement. $47 million, built over 40 years of sacrifice while my children mocked me for being poor.
Gasps rippled through the courtroom. I gave him everything except my money, wanting to see if he'd love me without it. I turned to Ashton. You failed, son. You failed the only test that mattered. But here's what breaks my heart. I continued pulling out more papers. These are the thank you letters I wrote but never sent. Thank you for teaching me greed is more important than gratitude. Thank you for showing me Preston's money meant more than my love. Thank you for killing the father who would have died for you. Ashton was sobbing now, ugly, raw sobs that echoed through the courtroom. I don't ask for leniency, Your Honor. I ask for justice. My son needs to learn what I failed to teach him, that actions have consequences, that people aren't disposable, that love isn't measured in dollars. The judge's sentence was harsh but fair. 7 years. Kenzie's hearing was next. She looked skeletal, her hair unwashed, her designer clothes replaced with a jail jumpsuit. I presented similar evidence, but with her, I added something else. A video. This is Mackenzie at age 5, I said, as the screen showed a little girl dancing. She's singing You Are My Sunshine to me after I got laid off. She said, Don't worry, Daddy, you're rich in love. Kenzie broke down completely. That little girl was right. I was rich in love. But somewhere, she learned that wasn't enough. She learned it from watching her mother leave me for money. She learned it from Preston's gifts. She learned it from a society that says fathers like me are worthless. But she made choices, I said, turning to the judge. She chose to destroy families for profit. She chose to mock the man who raised her. She chose Preston's values over mine. The judge's sentence was harsh but fair. 4 years plus restitution. As they led her away, Kenzie turned back. Daddy, I love you. I love you too. But love without respect is just manipulation. You taught me that. Outside the courthouse, Natalie waited, looking haggard and old. Are you satisfied? You've destroyed your own children. No, Natalie. You and Preston destroyed them with false values. I just stopped enabling the destruction. They'll never forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking them to become people worth forgiving. I need you to understand something before you judge me. Every parent reading this has feared raising children who value the wrong things. I lived that fear. If this story is breaking your heart like it broke mine, please subscribe. Hit that notification bell, because sometimes the most important stories are the ones that hurt to tell.
I sold everything and disappeared to a place where nobody knew my shame. Then one morning, a stranger knocked on my door holding a pie and said 13 words that brought me to my knees. You saved my family by destroying yours. How do I thank you for that? The house in Nashville sold in 2 days. Cash offer, no questions asked. I donated most of the $47 million to victims of financial fraud, keeping just enough to disappear properly. Charleston, South Carolina seemed far enough away, a place where nobody knew the man who'd turned in his own children. I bought a small cottage near Foley Beach, paid cash, told the neighbors I was a retired teacher. It wasn't entirely a lie. I had learned the hardest lesson too late to save my own family. 3 weeks into my new life, she appeared at my door. Maria Rodriguez, holding a sweet potato pie and her 8-year-old daughter's hand. Mr. Brenly, I'm the woman whose children almost died from the mold in the house your daughter sold us. I started to close the door, but she stopped me. Please, I drove from Nashville to find you. I need to say something. I don't deserve. You saved my family by destroying yours. How do I thank you for that? I broke down completely, sobbing on my doorstep while this stranger held me. Her daughter, shy and beautiful, handed me a drawing, a stick figure labeled Hero with tears on his face. My mommy says you're sad because you did the right thing, but good guys are supposed to be happy. Sometimes good guys have to be sad, so other people can be safe. Maria left the pie and her phone number. You have family in Nashville if you ever need us. The calls from prison came weekly. I never answered, but I listened to every voicemail. Ashton, Dad, I understand now. I'm in therapy. I'm learning. I'm sorry. Kenzie, Daddy, I dream about those families every night. I see their faces. I understand why you did it. Natalie, Garrett left me, took what little wasn't seized. I'm living with my sister, working at Target. You were right about everything. 6 months into my exile, I met Lillian at a grief support group. She'd lost her son to addiction after years of enabling him. I gave him everything: money, cars, bail, excuses. I killed him with kindness. I turned mine in to the FBI, killed them with consequences.
After the meeting, we walked the beach. Do you regret it? She asked. I regret that it was necessary. I regret raising children who valued things over people. I regret not seeing Preston's influence sooner. But not the revelation. No, because Mrs. Rodriguez's children are breathing, because the Newen family has a home, because my children might learn what I couldn't teach them. We started meeting for coffee, then dinners, then long walks where we talked about the particular grief of failing as parents. She understood the weight of loving someone you couldn't save. One evening, as the sun set over the Atlantic, she asked, "Will you ever forgive them?" "I already have," I said, "but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, light the way forward instead of back." A year passed. The news reached me in pieces. Ashton had started a prison ministry, teaching financial literacy to other inmates. Kinsey was working in the prison library, writing letters of apology to every family she'd wronged. Preston had been sentenced to 15 years. Natalie was in therapy, finally addressing the materialism that had poisoned our family. I donated another $10 million anonymously to Nashville's immigrant community, specifically for housing assistance. The rest went into a trust that would be released to Ashton and Kinsey only if they spent 10 years working for nonprofits after their release. They'd either learn the value of service or they'd get nothing. Either way, they'd become better people that I'd raised them to be. If you're still here, still watching, despite the pain of this story, then you understand that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Sometimes saving someone means letting them fall. Please share this story with anyone who needs to hear that choosing justice over enabling isn't cruel. It's the hardest form of love.
5 years later, I stood at the prison gates, holding flowers and a forgiveness I never thought I'd find. But it wasn't my son who walked out. It was a stranger who learned what I'd failed to teach, who'd become the man I'd always hoped he'd be. "Dad," he said, "I'm not sure I deserve to call you that anymore." "You're my son," I said simply. "Failed, fallen, but still mine." We stood there, two broken men in a prison parking lot, neither knowing how to bridge 5 years of necessary devastation. "I read every letter you never sent," he said finally. "The warden gave them to me. 300 letters you wrote but never mailed. You aren't ready to hear them. I am now." We drove in silence toward Nashville. I'd rented a car, couldn't bear to let him see I still drove the Oldsmobile he'd mocked. Some wounds teach us to protect ourselves, even from those we love. "I need to show you something," he said, directing me to a community center in North Nashville. Inside, the walls were covered with financial literacy posters, testimonials from families who'd avoided predatory loans, pictures of kids learning about compound interest. "I started this from prison," he explained, "worked with volunteers on the outside. We've helped 400 families avoid foreclosure, taught 1,000 kids about money. Real money, not Preston's kind." "How?" "I used my law degree for good, studied every predatory lending law, every consumer protection. Turns out I'm good at protecting people when I'm not stealing from them." A woman approached, elderly, Latina, dignified. "Mr. Ashton, you're back." She hugged him fiercely. "This man saved our home. From prison, he filed paperwork, made calls. He's an angel." After she left, Ashton turned to me. "I had 5 years to think about what you taught me versus what I learned. You taught generosity. I learned greed. You taught humility. I learned pride. You taught that money was a tool. I learned it was a goal." "I failed you," I said. "No, Dad, you failed to protect me from Preston's influence, but you succeeded in showing me consequences. That's parenting too." Kenzie was released 2 days later. She looked fragile but fierce, like steel that's been through fire. She ran to me, sobbing apologies that seemed to come from her bones. "I've written 247 apology letters," she said. "Every family I wronged. Some wrote back. Most didn't. I understand." She was living in a halfway house, working at a homeless shelter, studying to become a social worker. "I help people find homes now," she said, with bitter irony.
Honestly, this time. We had dinner at the Waffle House where I'd met with the investigator. Seemed fitting, ending where the ending began. "We know about the money, Dad," Ashton said quietly. "All of it. That you gave it away. Most of it. To our victims? To people who needed justice more than I needed wealth." Ricci reached across the table, taking my weathered hands. "We don't want your money, Daddy. We want your forgiveness. I have it. You've always had it. But we have to earn your respect," Ashton finished. "We know." "There's a trust," I admitted. $10 million each, but only if you work for nonprofits for 10 years. If you don't, it goes to charity." "Good. That's fair." We sat in silence, three people who'd broken each other and were trying to build something from the pieces. "What about Mom?" Ashton asked. "She's in therapy, working through her materialism. Preston's in for another 10 years minimum." "Do you ever think about what our family could have been if money hadn't poisoned everything?" "Every day," I said. "But poison can become medicine if you dilute it enough with truth." 6 months later, at Thanksgiving, we gathered at my cottage in Charleston. Ashton brought his girlfriend, a public defender who loved his mission more than his past. Kenzie brought her sponsor and a homemade pie. Natalie came alone, nervous, carrying the weight of choices that couldn't be undone. We ate turkey on paper plates, told careful stories, built fragile bridges over canyons of hurt. "I have something to say," Natalie announced. "I destroyed this family with my greed. I taught our children that love could be bought. Garrett, you tried to show them differently, and I undermined you every day. I'm sorry." It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was a beginning. As the sun set over Charleston Harbor, I stood on my deck, watching my broken family try to heal. Ashton was teaching Kenzie about the financial literacy program. Natalie was helping with the dishes, the first honest work I'd seen her do in 20 years. Lillian appeared beside me, the woman who had helped me heal. "They came back," she observed. "Different people came back. The ones I raised are gone." Maybe that's the miracle. Sometimes destruction is just aggressive renovation. My phone buzzed, a text from Maria Rodriguez. "My daughter got into college, full scholarship. She wrote her essay about the man who sacrificed his family to save hers. Thank you." I showed it to Lillian, who squeezed my hand. "Was it worth it? All that pain?" I looked at my family, criminals becoming servants, takers becoming givers, the entitled becoming grateful. "Ask me in 10 years," I said, "when the trust vests and we see who they've really become." But I already knew the answer. Sometimes the greatest act of love is forcing someone to become worthy of it.
If you've watched until the end, you've witnessed something rare. A family destroyed and rebuilt. A father's worst nightmare becoming redemption. This story isn't about revenge. It's about the price of transformation. If it moved you, if it made you think about your own family differently, please, I'm begging you, subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to know that even the deepest betrayals can become bridges to something better. And remember, wealth isn't what you have in the bank. It's who shows up when you have nothing left to give. Thank you for staying with me through this pain. Thank you for believing that broken things can be rebuilt. Thank you for understanding that sometimes love looks like letting go.